So this is CJ Baker. In many ways, this video will be different than the ones that were previously posted on the Ongoing History of Protest Music YouTube channel. So in the past, videos that were posted were basically pictures with like background music, but this one will be a bit different because you'll be able to see me speaking. So I figured I'll try this out to see if people prefer to see who's speaking and whether or not that will improve YouTube views and will improve interaction. But of course, it's possible you're gonna think, okay, who's this ugly bastard speaking? And you would prefer not to see me. We figure we'll give it a try. So the previous videos each dealt with a different decade and the best protest songs associated with that decade. So in the past, we had the best protest songs of the 2010s, the 2000s, the 90s, the 80s, the 70s. And this video will deal with 10 best protest songs of the 1960s. So in many ways, the 60s are considered the golden age of the protest movement, and it's the heyday of the protest song. It was a decade of social activism with causes that varied from the civil rights to the anti-war movement. So much of the music of the 60s provided the perfect soundtrack for the different social movements that were developing. So now we'll consider the list of the 10 best protest songs of the 60s. So number 10, Say It Loud, I'm Black and I'm Proud by James Brown. So this Black empowerment funk classic was recorded in 1968, and it was an important musical document in the development of the civil rights movement. So this song may not be one of the most complicated protest songs of the 60s civil rights movement, but it was one of the most direct and exuberant. So the call and response of the chorus is extremely infectious. So number 9, The Fish Cheer, I Feel Like I'm Fixin' to Die by Country Joe McDonald. So the song was originally recorded for the 1967 Country Joe and the Fish album, Feel Like I'm Fixin' to Die. But arguably, the more well-known version of the tune is McDonald's solo acoustic version, which was recorded live at Woodstock. So the performance at Woodstock was unplanned. It was basically a stopgap performance because of unexpected delays in the schedule. It did become one of the highlights of the festival. So, for example, if you watch the 1970 documentary of the concert, they added a sing along bouncing ball for dramatic effect. So, this Vietnam protest song is important in the development of the protest movement, and in many ways, it could be considered a sacred relic of the hippie countercultural movement. So, number 8, Universal Soldier by Buffy Sainte-Marie. So this folk standard was written by and originally recorded by Canadian singer-songwriter Sainte-Marie for 1964 classic debut album, It's My Way. So this protest song is all about individual responsibility. Like we can take note of the lyrics. Without him, how would Hitler have condemned him at Dachau? Without him, Caesar would have stood alone. He's the one who gives his body as a weapon through the war. Without him, all this killing can't go on. That message of individual responsibility continues to be relevant. So number 7, Love Me, I'm a Liberal, Phil Ochs. Ochs has written numerous socially conscious tunes, so he has no shortage of songs to choose from. So this satirical ditty originally appeared on his 1966 In Concert album. It exposes the hypocrisy of mainstream liberalism. So on the concert recording, he introduced it by the following. In every American community, there are varying shades of political opinion. One of the shadiest of these is liberals, an outspoken group on many subjects, 10 degrees to the left of center in good times, 10 degrees to the right of center if it affects them personally. Here, then, is a lesson in safe logic. So this song has been covered several times, often with updated lyrics to reflect the current political climate. So even though some of the situations may change, the attitudes exposed are as prevalent as ever. So number 6, Eve of Destruction by Barry McGuire. So this protest song, written in 1965 by 19-year-old P.F. Sloan, became a modern-day protest movement standard. The most well-known version of the song is by Barry McGuire, which was recorded in 1965, and it appeared on the album of the same name. This song warns of a pending apocalypse, but it's not just anti-war. It touches upon a number of other social issues as well, including civil rights. And one of the key lyrics in the song is, "You're old enough to kill, but not for voting." This helped fuel the decision to lower the minimum voting age to 18, which was the minimum age for draft eligibility. So number 5, Respect by Aretha Franklin. So Aretha Franklin's trademark hit is from her 1967 album, I Never Loved a Man the Way I Love You. It was originally written and recorded by Otis Redding in '65, with a few modifications. Aretha transformed the song into an anthem of female empowerment. So the song became an important catalyst of the feminist movement that would follow in the 70s. So one of the most important modifications that Franklin made is the RESPECT chorus. So it's definitely one of the catchiest and most infectious protest songs ever recorded. So number 4, Fortunate Son by Creedence Clearwater Revival. So CCR's contribution to the protest movement was from their 1969 album, Willie and the Poor Boys. It's one of those tunes which is opposed to war, but is also supportive of troops. The songwriter John Fogerty was protesting the fact that certain individuals were receiving preferential treatment by then President Richard Nixon. And this preferential treatment allowed them to avoid the draft. The song was partially inspired by Dwight Eisenhower's grandson, David, who ended up marrying Richard Nixon's daughter, Julie. So in a 1969 interview for Rolling Stone magazine, Fogerty made the following statement. Julie Nixon was hanging around with David Eisenhower, and you had the feeling that none of these people were going to be involved with the war. So later on in recent years, or even just basically in 2020, Fogerty was understandably upset when former President Donald Trump played the tune at his rallies. And part of the reason this would upset Fogerty is because Trump was the very embodiment of what the song was protesting against. So number 3, Only a Pawn in the Game by Bob Dylan. So of course, Dylan wrote many classic protest songs, and his music was closely linked with the 60s civil rights movement and the 60s anti-war movement. So it would be hard to narrow down just one Dylan protest song for this list. But Only a Pawn in the Game is a thought-provoking social commentary concerning the murder of civil rights activist Medgar Evers. The song was released on his 1964 album, The Times Are Changing, but it was first performed at the 1963 March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. So this was the same landmark political rally that Martin Luther King Jr. gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. So the song addresses the fact that Evers' murderer, Byron de la Beckwith, was not the only one to blame for the murder. Dylan eloquently points out the fact that de la Beckwith was an instrument for the dominant racist ideology of that time, the same racist mindset which led to 2 hung juries in 1964 and delayed justice for 30 years until de la Beckwith would finally be convicted for Evers' murder in 1994. So sadly, those sentiments are just as poignant today. Dylan wasn't just protesting an event, he was taking aim at a poisonous mindset that needs to change. So number 2, Mississippi Goddamn by Nina Simone. So Mississippi Goddamn was Simone's response to the murder of civil rights activist Medgar Evers in Mississippi and a bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama. So the song may have been the most controversial protest tune. Initially appeared on her 1964 live album, a classic album, Nina Simone in Concert. And this was the starting point of Simone becoming more political with her music. It was also released as a single, but it was banned in many southern states, partly because of the word goddamn, and partly for its scathing expose of southern bigotry. So in the lyrics, she discusses the importance of taking direct action in order to achieve lasting progress. She also pointedly references the right moderates that promote slow-moving incremental changes. So Mississippi Goddam became a notable civil rights anthem, and on March 24, 1965, Simone performed the song in front of 10,000 people towards the conclusion of the from the Selma to Montgomery marches. So number one, A Change Is Gonna Come by Sam Cooke. This 1964 soul classic is from Cooke's 1964 album, Ain't That Good News. So the song became closely linked with the civil rights movement of the 60s. So part of what led Cooke to compose this classic song was Bob Dylan's 1963 landmark protest song, Blowin' in the Wind, which Cooke frequently performed in concert. So Sam Cooke was motivated to compose his own statement of change. So the song was also deeply affected by his own personal experience of having to deal with racism and discrimination. This included an event where he and his entourage would turn away from a rights-only motel in Louisiana. So compared to previous apolitical tunes that Sam Cooke recorded, at the time it was only a modest hit, but since has become one of the most important songs of all time. And sadly, it still remains relevant. So this concludes the list of the 10 best protest songs of the 1960s. And of course, in many ways, this only scratches the surface because, as we mentioned previously, the 60s were considered golden age of protest music. So what were some of your favorite protest songs of the 60s? Is there another song by Bob Dylan or Nina Simone or Phil Ochs that you felt should have been on the list instead? Feel free to protest the list in your comments. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. So for more content, you can check out the website Ongoing History of Protest Songs.com and the companion podcast, The Ongoing History of Protest Music. So you can find us on many platforms, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you want to see me to continue to produce more content, you can support these videos, podcasts, and website at Patreon. So patreon.com, Ongoing History of Protest Music, and patrons receive exclusive content. So thanks for watching, and please stay safe.